Stalingrad wasn't a battle. It was where one of the largest armies in Europe walked into a city and was annihilated street by street. In the summer of 1942, Hitler wanted one thing: oil. The German war machine ran on it, and without the Caucasus fields, the entire Eastern campaign would stall. Stalingrad was never meant to be the main prize. It was a factory city on the Volga, a critical artery carrying grain, supplies, and Caucasus oil north into the Soviet interior. Case Blue only required reaching the Volga near Stalingrad to cut that traffic and guard the flank of the oil offensive. Capturing every block of the city wasn't even necessary. But once the fighting began, the battle changed shape. Stalin could not allow a city that carried his name to fall. Losing it would look like the Germans had shattered not just a stronghold, but Stalin himself. And for Hitler, taking Stalingrad became a personal obsession, a propaganda victory he had to claim. What began as strategy became an ego war. Two dictators fighting over a name, and the German Sixth Army marched in. Most of them would never return. The Germans expected another swift professional victory. They had crossed half of Europe in lightning campaigns. Cities usually collapsed within days. Stalingrad did not. The Luftwaffe bombed the city into rubble. But that only made the fighting worse. The streets became mazes. Collapsed buildings turned into firing positions. Every crater, sewer pipe, and pile of bricks became a place to kill from. The Germans weren't fighting in a city. They were fighting through a ruin that favored its defenders. The Soviets refused to abandon the west bank of the Volga. Reinforcements, ammunition, even food crossed under constant German fire. Boats were sunk, men drowned, others froze. Still, every night more soldiers arrived, many barely trained, some without rifles, waiting to take one from the fallen. Their orders were simple: hold Stalingrad, not one step back. The northern factories, Tractor, Red October, Barricadi, became the core of the resistance. Those industrial fortresses had been built for steel and machinery. Now they absorbed artillery fire. Inside, the fighting was point blank. Rooms changed hands dozens of times in a single day. Men fought over staircases, machine pits, assembly lines. It wasn't urban warfare. It was indoor trench warfare. The city dissolved into what soldiers called the Rattenkrieg, the Rat War. Snipers hunted each other through shattered windows. Sappers crawled beneath floors with explosives. Troops tunneled under rubble, appearing behind enemy lines without warning. By November, both sides were exhausted. Ammunition was low. Winter hit the steppe with full force. The German line around Stalingrad was stretched thin, long exposed flanks running over open ground north and south of the city. The Germans believed those flanks were secure. They weren't. The Soviets had been preparing a trap for months. On November 19th, 1942, the Red Army attacked, not into Stalingrad, but into the weakly equipped Romanian, Hungarian, and Italian units holding the flanks. They fought hard, but they were outmatched. Few anti-tank guns, little winter clothing, no reserves. Soviet armor broke through in days. West of Stalingrad lay a critical crossing over the Don River, near the town of Kalach, the lifeline for the Sixth Army's supplies. On November 23rd, Soviet spearheads met there. The ring slammed shut. There was no road out. The Sixth Army was surrounded. Inside the encirclement, Conditions disintegrated. Temperatures plunged to -20. Wounded men froze where they lay. Medical supplies ran out. Horses were slaughtered for food. Then they boiled and ate their belts. Boots, straps, any scrap of leather that might keep them alive. The Luftwaffe tried to supply the pocket, but it was impossible. The 6th Army needed 700 tons of supplies a day. Some days, barely 80 arrived. By January, the army was falling apart. Units dissolved. Men were too weak to stand. Ammunition was nearly gone. Whole battalions surrendered without firing a shot. Hitler ordered them to fight to the last man. Paulus begged to break out. The answer never changed. No retreat. On January 31st, 1943, Field Marshal Paulus surrendered the southern pocket. 2 days later, the last resistance in the north collapsed. Around 300,000 Axis soldiers had entered Stalingrad. Fewer than 6,000 would ever see home again. The 6th Army wasn't just defeated. It was erased, street by street, block by block. In the city, they thought they'd easily conquer. And then, for the first time in months, Stalingrad fell silent. What remained was a frozen graveyard of rubble and bone. A place where entire divisions had ceased to exist. For the Germans, Stalingrad marked the moment the war stopped being a campaign and became a countdown. After Stalingrad, they would never advance east again.